And my friend Adrian Barker asked me to share my friends with you, and I've enjoyed doing that this week. I want to introduce you guys to Miss Angie Pye from the Beacon Center here in Daytona Beach. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good. How are you and Dusty doing?
We are doing good. I mean, we're trying to stay at home and do what we can from that standpoint, but a little stir crazy. I admit, I'm a little stir crazy.
Now, are you at the center every day?
No, I've been trying to go in at least like I have to go in about a day a week,
Mhm.
just to take care of administrative stuff that I have to be on site for. But we've been all trying to stay home as much as we can. But we obviously do have staff on 24/7. They're at the shelter facility.
Awesome. So, for those of you that don't know, what is the Beacon Center?
The Beacon Center is the only certified domestic violence center in Volusia County. We serve the entire county, and we provide services to survivors of domestic violence and their children.
Awesome. And I've had the privilege with my staff to tour the Beacon Center with Angie because the Beacon Center is our FASTSIGNS Cares project for 2020. And we've had
Hmm.
so many other things happen along the way, but
I know, right?
we can't volunteer right now, but we are doing some things on the back end, and one day we'll talk about those. But for now, we'll really talk about the Beacon Center, what it does here in Volusia County. But tell me how you got involved with the Beacon Center, because you've not been on a long time, right?
No, I've been there going on 4 years. At the end of this year, it'll be 4 years. But I interestingly wanted to come to Daytona years ago, and it didn't work out for me to come to Daytona. Just wanted to move to the area really, but this center's off position opened up a few years back. I was working in Putnam County. I've been in the field for 23 years, so I've been doing this kind of work for a really long time. And Daytona was an area I wanted to move to anyway, so it was fortuitous, and we came.
Awesome. And Volusia County is definitely a county that needs a program like the Beacon Center. Um,
Yeah.
it, we have 67 counties in Florida, and if I read correctly, it is number 6 in domestic violence. Is that phone calls um, to local authorities? How do they determine that number?
That number is based in reporting, so it's based in the Florida Department of Law Enforcement's numbers, and it's actually we're the sixth highest rates of domestic violence, not incidents, but rates. So they show the rates on there per 100,000 people, and for the amount of people that we have, our rates are very high, relatively speaking.
How are you guys seeing this COVID-19, quarantine situation affect homes with domestic violence? I read somewhere, and it may have even been an interview with you, so pardon if I just can't remember. So right now, the number of people that are calling is a little lower. Now, obviously, they're in quarantine, whether it's a woman or a man, at home, probably with their abuser or in lockdown, which is a nightmare.
Hmm.
I'm a survivor of domestic violence, and the idea of that is just daunting.
Wow.
So,
Right.
do you expect for there to be a spike afterwards, or are you guys starting to see a change as we go into week 4?
I do. I think we're not really seeing much of a change yet. Our numbers are lower than normal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I do think as soon as the safe at home order is lifted, that we will have an influx. People are going to, be getting out while they can because their abuser will finally be leaving the house, possibly going back to work or just getting back out of the house, and it will give them an opportunity. And interestingly, um, our busiest time of year is during tax season because people have money to leave. And then when school lets out, because a lot of mothers they don't want to leave during the school year and disrupt their child's school year, so they wait until they get out of school and usually come in the summer, and then hopefully have housing and stabilize by the time their kids start school again. So the COVID-19 has, curbed a lot of that, and unfortunately, women who may have normally used money to leave the home during tax season probably didn't get access to that money this year, because a lot of the survivors that we see are financially abused by their partner as well. So they don't have any real access to the money, and so that may throw in another roadblock for a lot of the survivors who might have been depending on that money to help them become independent. And then with school, it looks like they may not be going back this year. So the parents have the added struggle of getting their children schoolwork, and it's just a lot for them to take on. So I think that the summertime is going to bring our normal or somewhat normal influx of people that are going to be taking that time as an opportunity to get out and stabilize. But it's really scary to me, the numbers being as low as they are at a time that we're normally busy, because I think that means a lot of people are trapped,
Right.
for right now.
Right. And I had an interview with someone. I can't remember if I was interviewing her or she was interviewing me at this point. We talked a little bit about what that looks like. And, for someone who was in that situation, a 3-day weekend was one day too much.
Wow.
Thanksgiving was one day too much. You know what I mean? So the idea of being 4 weeks, possibly working at home with your partner, if they're working at home, or if they've been laid off or you've been laid off, the stress of not being able to find employment at this time under those already stressful situations, it's just, it's really disheartening because we know that it's happening, right? The numbers don't lie.
Right.
So
No, yeah. And it's, last time we saw an economic turn that like this in I believe '08 was the year, the homicides were really high that year in Florida. I believe we had a close to 190, and just domestic violence homicides, domestic violence related homicides. So we know that financial means it can be a pre-incident indicator to domestic homicides. We know it adds tension to the home. It's certainly not the cause of it, but we certainly see loss of job as a pre-incident indicator. So I think it's really important for us right now to, as a community, be talking about this issue. So I'm so grateful for you doing this today, because the more we talk about it and get information out to the people in these homes that are trying to survive this situation, they'll know. You may not be able to call us right now because the individual that's hurting you may be in the home, but there are other ways to reach out. We're trying to make as many safe ways as possible, but as soon as the time comes that you can make that call and get the help that you need, we're going to be there. We're going to be available to take it. So we're here.
And I know that, like, when I was married for 8 years, and 6 of those years it was a physically violent relationship, and it did end in a sexual assault. But a lot of times, like for me, I wasn't in an economically bad situation. I was the provider of our home, but it was such a taboo. Like, I didn't want to be that woman. I didn't, the stereotype or the taboo of talking about it, getting help for him, getting help for me, it was so unrealistic, right? So I think a lot of times women, they could get out, like I could have gotten out, but there was this stereotype and this taboo. So I think talking about it, we need to be more upfront that this is happening in every home, every economic status that there is, every social status that there is. There is no respect of race, gender, sexual orientation. I mean, this is happening in a lot of more homes than what we envision. Even like what I envisioned, it was pictured to me a lot like what I saw on TV, and I was like, that's not the woman. I'm not that woman, but I was that woman. Just the package looked different.
Hmm.
right?
Right.
So talking about it more, and I hope that we can continue to have these conversations on an open platform, and that more people are doing these videos and asking you guys to come out and talk about it, because it is scary. And I
Hmm.
was looking at one of the statistics that said that 1 in 6 women will have been through an attempted or a completed assault. 1 in 6.
Yeah.
That's a lot
Hmm.
of women.
It's a lot.
So
Yeah.
when you guys right now, like we've seen a couple of cases in the last week that were domestic violence related here in Volusia County. How is the Beacon Center working with local authorities to kind of help remedy the problem? Is there
Hmm.
a preemptive move, or tell me what that process looks like for you?
Well, I think that's an area that we could really strengthen in Volusia County. We have the referral sources in place. I mean, law enforcement is aware that there's a certified domestic violence center. They pretty much know how to direct people to it. They have a requirement under Florida statute to notify the victim of domestic violence of certified centers in the area to get help whenever they respond to a domestic violence incident. I think the information is there, but whenever we're talking about this kind of crime, when we're talking about domestic violence, child abuse, sexual violence, those types of very personal crimes, it's our responsibility as a community to take it a step further and look at our community response. We know that we cannot reduce domestic homicides in a community if we do not create a community coordinated response where everybody's working together, from the survivor that is, dealing with this, and the family members that are dealing with this, all the way to the judge that's going to hear that case, and the juries that are going to be making decisions. We have to educate people. And the reason that I think that I can see where there's work needs to be done is because how we talk about this issue as a community. And I know, I've noticed that when you pick up a newspaper and you read about this, a lot of times what you're hearing from the leaders in the community that are responding to this crime is that this victim is uncooperative, and we can't do what we need to do because the victim's uncooperative. And that demonstrates for me that our system lacks a real trauma informed care response, and it's not as domestic violence informed as it could be. So we can make the referrals to each other, and we can talk about the services that we have available, but we really have to start looking at what are we doing, each organization, to partner with each other so that these cases don't fall through the cracks. I've spent time over the last several years on a fatality review team, and I also sat on the child fatality review team for the state for a couple of years. And one of the things that was really evident to me whenever we had a homicide was that everybody knew something about this family, but people weren't really communicating well. And there was a lot of gaps in service where those things weren't bridged. And had that information been bridged, maybe, we would have intervened in time that this wouldn't happen. I mean, domestic homicides can only truly be blamed on the person that's committing the crime.
Absolutely.
So, but as a community, I think that there's things that we could do to look at how we're responding. Our system seems to be very focused around the choice the victim makes instead of the actions of the perpetrator, and we don't see that in all crimes, but we do see it in crimes like sexual assault and domestic violence. And then sometimes even we hear it in child abuse. I mean, I've heard over the years that we can't use this child because, kids don't make good witnesses, or we don't want to put the child on the stand. And I think that there's a lot to think about with that, because we don't want to cause further trauma. But I think we have to empower people to speak out and know that they're going to be supported too. So, um, there's some really good conversations happening right now in the community. I have been talking with the state attorney's office, and we're looking at things that we can do to partner better and make sure that we have information out to survivors. We're seeing more information come from our law enforcement partners, directing people to the certified center to make sure that the community has the information. Those are all really great things. But I think we need to take it a step further and come together and say how, let's bring in some professionals that can help us assess and evaluate our community response, look for the weaknesses, look for the strengths. What are we doing really well and what do we need to improve on? And make sure that we're really supporting families to heal. The individual that's committing these crimes needs to change his or her behavior too. And it's not good enough just to say take the kids and you go away from him. In a lot of cases, he's the father of the children, so there's going to be interaction between the two of them.
Absolutely.
How do we make sure that people are safe doing that and the children have the resiliency they need to cope with what's happening to their family? And where can we make improvements around that? I think that when we do those kind of things, we will start to see a reduction, particularly in domestic homicide, but also in survivors that are quote unquote uncooperative. They're not uncooperative, they're scared and they're
Yeah.
traumatized, and this is their family. And it really shouldn't be about the decision that they're making. It should be about the decision the perpetrator has made. So we have to refocus onto a perpetrator accountability philosophy instead of a victim blaming philosophy.
So interesting. Excuse me. It's not COVID-19. It's allergies. I promise.
It's okay. We're more than 6 feet away.
So interesting that you say that, because obviously I was in it for 6 years, and there was a time where my husband felt very convicted. My ex-husband felt very convicted and wanted to get help. And we did seek help through a church. But there wasn't any programs that we could find to get him the help that he needed. So number one, we went into counseling together, which is a no-go. I mean, you don't do counseling with two people that are in the situation, but they didn't know that that was the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Right.
There were no batterer awareness programs that were not online, that were interactive. It was all online, court-based programs. So when we look at the issue, the taboo side of that is saying, hey, we also want to get help for abusers so that we can change the cycle. It doesn't seem like there's anything in place that is good enough to say that there is some sort of recovery program for someone who's dealing with anger. So if we look at anger the same way that we look at other social issues like alcoholism, like drug abuse, how do we change it if we don't change the core of the problem, right? And a lot of that is how law enforcement can impact that, even when they separate people and don't arrest. Or like in my case, my husband was never arrested. We were trying to seek help for him inside the home. There were no programs. Do you feel like there's a need for that? And do you see that we'll ever get to that point? Or is it still too early in this very taboo subject?
Yeah, I think, well, the bad thing is we've had them and we've backed up. So the Department of Children and Families used to certify battery intervention programs, and the battery intervention programs that come out of the Duluth model, the violence intervention. I'm sorry, I forgot the other word, but it's online. I'll try to remember. I'll send it to you. But the curriculum that comes out of there is the best curriculum that we currently have. It's really the recommended one. There's also a level of a lot of programs take that into a social justice.
Oh, I think I lost Angie. There you are. I lost your audio. I lost your audio. Nope. Oh no. So give us just a second while we try and reconnect with Miss Angie. I can't hear you. We actually had some issues connecting, so she might have to sign off and sign back on. So my apologies that our conversation is getting interrupted. Um, but if you haven't if you haven't done a tour of the Beacon Center and you are someone that's interested, Angie is a great resource to visit that facility. Of course, it's undisclosed, and it does serve the Daytona Beach area in Volusia County. I believe that she is going to be signing back on, so I'll get her on as soon as we can. But I'll blab for a little bit until she comes back on. Let me just make sure that we are connecting. There we go. She is. She's in. Maybe.
Can you hear
Hi.
me?
I can. I was
Sorry, since I had to do this on my phone, somebody called, and I guess that just completely screwed it
no
up. So I
worries.
apologize. But
No, you're
to
fine.
get back on track, the Department of Children and Families did certify those programs, and it was much more beneficial when they were certified because you could monitor who was doing it, and you knew that the program was being managed in the appropriate way. Because when we're looking at domestic violence perpetrators and the need to deal with that behavior, we have to look at the root cause to this, and the root cause of domestic violence is really rooted in sexism, a lot like uh, hate crimes are rooted in racism or homophobia. So this is about somebody who believes that they should have this kind of power over the other individual in the relationship because they're in a relationship. And this is why a lot of times you see more female victims really than male victims of domestic
Mhm.
violence, because generally women aren't able to perpetrate this crime to the same level that men can, which is a whole huge discussion on how that affects the belief system of the perpetrator. So you have to be able to challenge that and how the individual perpetrator may think about their partner and their children. So gender doesn't matter. We were talking about that piece of it a minute ago, because it's really about the belief system of this person and their ability to have coercive control over the
Mhm.
victim. So we know that a lot of domestic violence does not rise to the level of criminal. It's not a crime if your husband calls you names or takes the checkbook or takes the keys or doesn't let you have the credit card. There's lots of things like that that a perpetrator can commit on the victim that never rises to the level of a crime. So when probably 85, 90% of what the individual is dealing with in the home is not criminal, it changes how you think about this
Yeah.
situation, because you can't solve it with the criminal justice system. You have to solve it with treatment whenever they come to our attention. So helping people, I think having those certified programs is very necessary. If we don't have the ability to certify them, we at least need to vet them, and the community needs to know what the program looks like and be invested in it, so that we know that it's going to be effective for the individuals that are there. Um, Plus, we just have to quit allowing them to have an excuse for their behavior. It's not okay to get angry, even if it's anger. If that's the excuse, I don't get to get angry and beat people up. You
Right.
just don't. So it doesn't matter how angry they got. It doesn't matter how drunk they got. It doesn't matter how high they got. If they're doing things that causes them to commit these kind of acts of violence against their partner, that's a problem that has to be dealt with. You don't get to do that. So, and I know you've heard this. How many times have you've been talking about domestic violence, and the first thing anybody ever asks you is, why do women stay? Why don't they just leave?
Well, I thought
That's the
you were
wrong.
in that.
Yeah, what that's the wrong question.
Yeah.
We as a community need to start asking why the perpetrators of this crime are getting away with committing these acts against their partner and their children. That's the question we need to answer, because it's not a crime. that she stayed in the relationship. What was a crime was what the individual did to her. So we really have to change the way we think and talk about this particular crime if we're going to change it, and we're really going to support survivors in their efforts for safety and justice.
Right. We need really need to stop looking at women like if they're uneducated because they made a decision to stay with someone that they love.
Right.
Because domestic violence happens in a home where there is a marriage or a relationship, some sort of a commitment. And for those that are not in the financial position to leave or have children, it's very difficult. I know that you and I in our first meeting, and I don't know the statistics, so you're going to have to pick this up after for me, but you talked about in Volusia County, there being a spike as far as like women that or a victim that calls that they take the children away. Now, is that unique to Volusia County, and where are the problem areas in that?
Well, it's not unique, but the numbers are pretty high here. Removal numbers are pretty high here, and removals due to domestic violence, they're still pretty high, but we've been able to really do some work with the department, and we have an attorney now that represents the individuals that we're serving for free throughout their dependency case. I think that helps a lot. But the problem is this: if I am if my husband attacks me with my kids at home, and I call law enforcement, and that individual gets arrested, usually law enforcement says, well, there's kids in the home, so we're going to make a report to the child abuse hotline. They're not determining whether the kids were safe or unsafe, and that's what the department's supposed to do. So when the department gets there, they have to decide if the kids were safe or unsafe, and so that's where there's a lot of subjectivity, because what happens is my kids may have been in the other room, they didn't see what happened. I know that they may be aware of what's happening, but they were safe. They didn't get harmed. They followed their safety plan. You know, we work with a lot of women and develop safety plans with their kids. So if violence starts, the kids know what to do and how to be safe. So that happens. And then sometimes she gets kind of blamed in that she was still in the home. Well, if there's a history, so he's attacked you before and you went back to him, so therefore you're not protective and we're going to remove. So that's a problem with how we think about these cases, and we do need to start supporting the mother's efforts for safety by holding the perpetrator accountable. And from a child welfare standpoint, the court does have the power to say to an individual, you won't hit, push, kick, slap. You will not, in a child welfare case, for instance, you'll give her access to the checking account. You won't turn the power off. You'll make sure she has the car to get to her appointments. You know, that's the kind of stuff we have to start changing in our case plan development, is what do we expect this individual to do as a parent to the children? And the good thing is that hopefully this individual who might be committing acts of violence, maybe he does stop that behavior and becomes a better parent, and that's good for kids. You know, it's still their dad. They're still going to be going to his house on the weekends, whether the parents are together or not. He's going to have visits. So if he gets in another relationship and we haven't dealt with him, then he's going to beat up somebody else in front of his kids anyway. We haven't changed the scenario for the children at all. You know, so I think we have to really look at, we don't want to set up a system where survivors are afraid to reach out to help because they're afraid they'll lose their children. And so all I can do is encourage people, if you feel unsafe, you call law enforcement. Call us. We'll help. We'll work with you and the child welfare agency or whoever to make sure that people understand that your unique set of circumstances and how what is happening affected you. And then we can kind of help come up with the ways to keep them and the children safe, where everybody feels good about it. All the services feel, you know, like the kids are in in a good place and are safe and are taken care of.
When a woman calls the Beacon Center, what is the process? What does that look like for you guys? I call the hotline 100% of the times. A woman is not going to come in. Sometimes they stay in their home, right? So what are the different scenarios?
So they can, if they call the hotline, basically we start with what led them to call the hotline. You know, a lot of times outside of, are you safe? That's my first question. You know, what led you to call the hotline today? It may be that they're not ready to leave, but they want to talk to somebody about their relationship. Maybe they need help financially because they're being financially controlled. Our role is to help them do what they feel like is they need to do for safety right now. So if they need shelter, then we work on helping them find a safe place or bringing them into the shelter. If they want to stay in the relationship, if they want to talk about what's happening and safety plan, we can do that. They can call anonymously. They don't even have to tell us their name. If they just want to call and talk to somebody about their situation, we can even do that anonymously. The power is theirs. Our goal is to give them the power back as quickly as we can. So whatever decisions they want to make, we work with them to make those decisions. You know, we're not there to decide for them or tell them what to do. If they don't want to participate in prosecution of their case, that's their choice. If they don't want to call the police, that's their choice. You know, my goal is that they have an outlet, that they have a place they can go, that they don't have to worry about anybody telling what they're saying or what they're doing, that they can have a sounding board with somebody that doesn't violate their trust, that keeps the information confidential, and that can help them really make the decisions that they feel like are best for them. At the end of the day, we're just here to support them in their efforts, whatever it looks like. And it doesn't mean that we won't share our knowledge if they are making decisions that seem unsafe or unhealthy, then we'll talk about those things. But no matter what, if they have other issues, you know, a lot of women that have substance abuse issues are being abused, and they might not reach out to help because they're afraid that they'll be judged about the substance misuse issue. That's not going to happen with us. If they need help, we're going to help them with that too. So,
And the reality, it shouldn't be a judgment of any sort. It shouldn't matter.
no,
It
it
really
shouldn't matter. You're right. And that's what we want to be, is our organization wants to be that one bridge that can't be burned, because batterers a lot of times destroy that survivor's helpers. You know, they'll cause problems with their other services that they're involved in. They'll tell lies on them. They'll report things. They can't do that with us. You know, we're not going to allow the perpetrator to destroy the relationship that she has with us. So we want to be that safe place that no matter what, even if they get up, you know, even if the survivor gets upset with us, and, you know, we're going to be there whenever they want to come back. They can't mess that up. We need to be that place for them.
Absolutely. Now, tell me a little bit about the facility. It is an undisclosed location, so we won't talk about where it's at, but it is here in Volusia County. I've been privileged to do a tour of the facility. Tell us a little bit about that. How many people does it house? Does it just house women? Does it house children? Does it house both men, families? What are you looking at?
We can house up to 60. We do have the capability to house men and older adult males. We have with like if an 18 or 19-year-old kid was still living at home, you know, with his mom. We don't have a lot of requests for males, and I'm not sure that long term we would be able to do it just because of the layout of our facility. But we are going to renovate. So maybe, you know, we're hoping to have some options there. But there are a lot of centers in the state that do. And we will also help with the hotel room, for instance, if we needed to do that to have that individual safe. So they can live there. really as long as they need to get on their feet to some degree. So we have a minimum 6 week stay, but we also have extended shelter stay. So depending on the individual and what they're going through and what they're working on, they may need a little bit more time than just the 6 weeks. They can get all the services there. We have bedrooms, so we have single families have a bedroom to themselves, a bathroom, television, beds. We supply food. We supply all the basic needs, personal hygiene items, household items, sheets, pillows, blankets. We have a huge clothes closet. So if somebody had to leave with nothing, we will take care of what they need. And when they move out, they take their sheets and blankets and pillows and all those towels, all the things that we give them, they take that with them for their new housing, for their new setup. And so we will try to take care of whatever needs they have. And we provide services, obviously, there, counseling, support groups, referrals. There's advocates there 24/7. We've just finished a playground project. It looks like the kids are going to have an awesome new playground at the facility by the end of summer. The COVID-19 has slowed that down, but our next goal was going to be to renovate the kitchen. That was going to be our next capital campaign. And then our administrative offices caught on fire, so it looks like we're going to have to do that first. But
just this week, right?
yeah,
just
just
our administrative offices.
yes. So that's going to be the next store order, just to get us back in there and get that done. But our next big job is going to be the kitchen, and we're looking at redoing the common areas of the building. We're going to be redoing the bedrooms over the next couple years. I've got a vision to have kennels, so we can have people can bring their pet, and their kennel and the pet could actually stay in the room with the family member. We're going to build runs off of those bedrooms, so they have that option. And I would like to have some extended housing for young mothers, children under 5. I think that would be a big need for our community due to the number of kids that age that are removed. If we could give them a safe place to work with mom, parenting, counseling, all the things, financial literacy, all the things they may need. And then I'd like to have tiny houses too. That's my 10-year plan. So we got a lot of plans, a lot of ideas.
I love it.
For what we would like to be able to offer in the community. So definitely follow us and keep in contact with us, and learn more about what we've got going on and what we're going to do.
What is the one thing that you guys feel could change as far as like community involvement, community awareness? Is it do you guys feel like you can impact more people if we share on Facebook? Do you feel obviously you guys are just undisclosed location, so that's a little difficult to get people there to help or whatever, but
Right.
there are volunteer opportunities. Is it the website? Is it how can we help put you guys at the front of the line when people are looking at local nonprofits?
I think following us on our social media like Facebook and Twitter, and sharing information is great. Visiting our website to learn more. We do have volunteer opportunities. We do have openings for board members. We're looking. I was thinking the other day, it'd be great if I had some, like a tech person that just did, maybe even a college student that's wanting to work on those kind of things, website development, material development, that kind of assistance. Any kind of specialty volunteer wise is always great, because if you have a particular skill around community awareness, working booths, doing trainings. I mean, we can train people to help. If you want to answer the hotline, if you want to work in the shelter and rock babies, I mean, we got babies that need to be rocked. So, I had an advocate yesterday. I took a picture on Facebook with her holding a baby and feeding it and answering a crisis call. So, there's always something to do. But I think talking about this issue, bringing people into civic organizations, to your places of business, to talk to your employees, to make sure your employees know what to do if they're unsafe, looking at policies on how we deal with it internally, doctors' offices sharing information. I mean, we really just have to make it part of a conversation all the time, like we do, maybe child abuse. It's
Absolutely.
something that needs to be talked about a lot.
Well, I know that our FASTSIGNS team is committed to help you guys with some of that information. We're working on a project right now to put small signs in doctor's offices where when a woman does her urine sample, she can mark it red versus black, asking for them
Hmm.
to remove the person that's in the room so that she can talk to the doctor one-on-one, because a lot of the times they'll go to the doctor with you, and that's a great opportunity for you to talk one-on-one with someone that can document that something's happened, or can get you help somewhere. So we're really looking forward to what that project will do. Obviously, with all that's been going on, we're a little delayed on that, but we've got the entire year to make that happen. So we are so excited. Did I lose you again? No. No, there
Sorry.
you are. I'm like, did I
Can you hear
lose? Yes, yes, I can hear you. So
Can
we're
you
we're
hear me?
yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
You can't hear me? This is great. But hey, it's Candid, and all right, we'll let her come back on. Can you hear me? Hi.
Sorry.
You can't? Yes. No. All right, let's see. We'll try and get her to jump back on here. So while Angie jumps back on so that we can finish our conversation, we're actually working on a project with her where if you're at a doctor's office, they will, there we go. Hold on. I think I got her. They will mark the urine sample, and hopefully the doctor can get information. Our goal is to get information into patients' hands that that can, oh, well, maybe that didn't work. Okay, maybe she'll come back on. So, we're really, what we want is we want all of our friends to just help us get um, the information out about the Beacon Center. I'm hoping that she'll jump back on so that you guys can say goodbye to Angie. She's got a 4:30 meeting, so I'm not sure that she will. But the Beacon Center is an amazing organization. We're so privileged to work with them and all of the work that they're doing. Obviously, domestic violence is something that is very dear to my heart. I am a survivor of domestic violence, and I hope that you guys will find it in your heart to just, follow them, share some of the things that are going on here locally, and just get informed about the issue. It's not just a woman's issue. It is also a it's a social issue. It's a humanitarian issue. So we want men to be safe in their homes. We want women to be safe in their homes, and we ultimately want families to be safe. So I don't see Angie. I don't know if you guys see her.
Can you hear me?
I see her on my phone. How funny. I see her on my phone,
I'm here.
but I don't see her here. So we've been disconnected. I know she's got a meeting at 4:30. Angie, I just want to thank you so very much for being with us today. I'm going to say that we're going to redo this interview so that we can talk again. I just appreciate you. If you guys can follow the Beacon Center in Daytona Beach, like their social media, and just if you see something, say something. I know as a woman that went through it myself and with a loving family, I had so much support, and I still managed to stay in a relationship for a long time that was detrimental to my health and my emotional stability. So I just say to you guys as friends that this is something very dear to me. I hope that we can get Miss Angie back on at another time. I know she's got a meeting in 2 minutes, so I will say goodbye. I appreciate you, Angie. I know we can't hear each other, but I hope that we will connect soon, and please support the Beacon Center. Bye, guys.